Hello and welcome to Blues View. I'm Paul Bradley and I'm joined on the phone now by Birmingham City correspondent Colin Tatham. Hi Colin.
Hello.
Well, in a minute we're going to talk about Birmingham City's European campaign and some of the congested fixtures coming up for them. But first of all, I wanted to get your verdict on the summer transfer window now that the transfer deadline day has been and gone. Just sum it up for us. What is your verdict?
Well, I think on the last day, I think it was as expected, really. The only surprise was Blues weren't able to move on Nikola Zigic, but on the flip side of that, that's a plus because they have him for a few more months. He's nearing full fitness, and he wants to play. And Chris Hughton will pick him when he's fit and available. So he will have some sort of a nuisance value in the Championship, and he will definitely boost the attacking options. But going back to the departures, Scott Dan, yeah, that was inevitable, as was Cameron Jerome. The only surprise there again was Scott Dan going to Blackburn Rovers, showing there that some of the big clubs didn't want to take the plunge, and ultimately I don't think he was left with any alternative other than the Wood Park offer on the table, and he chose to take it. He chose to go back to the Premier League, so we'll see how that pans out for him. But of course, Chris Hughton has also brought in Wade Elliott and Pablo. Again, with what he has to work with, could be quite shrewd additions. Wade Elliott's been around, he's a good player, he can play in a variety of positions, scored the goal that took Burnley up in the playoff final, and he's busting a gut to play for the club. Same as Pablo, who basically a little bit underused at Albion and still a little bit of an unknown quantity in this country, but I mean he's got an excellent pedigree and maybe he'll get more game time for Blues, especially with the fixtures that are going to be chock-a-block from now on.
I suppose it's fair to say as well that Chris Hughton will be relieved now that the transfer window has closed. So many players coming and going, but now he knows who his squad is, who's there, and it's going to be settled at least for a couple of months, you'd hope.
Yeah, definitely. I think he'd be looking forward to the day when the Premier League Predators can basically go away. Of course, he can still utilise the emergency loan system. And I'm sure he will be doing that, and he'll be doing that throughout the season. But yeah, he can now sort of bed in the sort of first choice 11 that he wants, and as I mentioned earlier, with Nikola Zigic and Marlon King also on the way back, that will give him a couple of very, very handy options for the attacking end of the pitch, and also Geraint and Dorr, we've not seen yet, a very powerful midfielder who also comes into the mix. So it's, although, it was very depressing to see what's gone on since relegation in terms of the departures, it's not all doom and gloom. There is a very decent squad down there, and if they can cope with the amount of games and stay injury-free and get something going at the top end of the pitch, why not look forward positively to a half-decent season?
You mentioned that congested fixture list there with Millwall, Braga and Southampton. The next couple of games coming up on the Sunday and Thursdays, it looks like Birmingham City can be playing a lot now. How's Chris Hughton going to be trying to manage his squad to make sure that he can play on all fronts?
I think he will start to rotate a little bit more. He's got a few more bodies in, whereas previously he was basically hampered. He could only pick the sort of bare minimum who were available. And he won't be taking Europa League games lightly, because I think the effect that the win over Nacional had on him and the players, and the way the crowd were into it, sell out St Andrews, I think that created an impression on them, and I think everybody realises that 6 games in the Europa League is not to be sniffed at, and let's face it, Blues have got half a chance of maybe progressing even further. So although the Championship campaign is a priority, Europa League is a pleasing distraction, and I think they're embracing it, and he will manage his resources accordingly, game by game. But as you said, it's quite a fixture pilot, but any team in the Championship anyway has to get used to playing 2-3 games a week, so it's not exactly uncharted territory in many respects.
And Colin, just my final question for Blues View today. When Birmingham City was successful last season, when they were doing well, they had a real core of players who kind of pulled them through. looking at the squad now, who would you say would be making up that core of players which can make or break a season for Birmingham City?
Well, I think really it's the spine of the side, and the centre-half pairing of Stephen Caldwell and Curtis Davis is going to be very important. And obviously you've got Pablo in there now, and Stephen Carr's influence as well. I mean, it's that defensive rock really that is going to be the key for them. And if Chris Hughton can find the sort of formula further up the pitch and get people assimilated in midfield, and get Chris Burke going, because when he plays well, Birmingham tend to play well. They're going to be important players, and of course the be-all and end-all is sticking the ball in the back of the net. And Adam Rooney and Chris Wood have done very well. They've been manful in their task so far, but they do need help. And I think Marlon King could be a very important player, because not only can he score goals at this level, but he's a handful, and he'll keep the ball, he'll hold the ball up, which was something that perhaps went a bit awry in the second half in the last game at Watford.
OK, Colin, well, look, thanks for your thoughts today, and thank you for listening today. We'll be back in next week with more Blues View.